Hello, I'm Marsha Bonhart. Welcome to the Dayton Mayoral Candidates Forum, brought to you by the Dayton Weekly News. This is Dayton's longest running African-American news publication. Now, we've invited all the candidates to join us on Zoom to respond to a series of questions and issues on the minds of citizens of Dayton. Welcome. Hello and welcome. Right now, we are interviewing Rennes Bowers, who is a candidate for the City of Dayton mayor. Welcome, Mr. Bowers, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. One thing that I've noticed that you mentioned quite a bit, that you're not a politician. You don't consider yourself a politician. Do you think that will serve as an advantage or a disadvantage as mayor?
Well, it kind of depends on how somebody defines politician. I saw an article that said we need politicians because they know how to navigate the political waters. They know how to make agreements. They know how to persuade people. In that sense, I am all of that, but I'm not a politician in the sense that I adhere to any party line. I vote worldview, not party, and not even person. So I'm not beholden to anybody. I am my own man, and I think that will serve the citizens of Dayton very well. One of the problems we've had is that one party has controlled the city commission and the mayor's office for a long, long time. So really, there's very, very little accountability because they're all in total agreement with one another.
Thank you. You belong to faith groups.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
Do you believe that faith groups can replace government in combating large issues like racism, taxes, development, that kind of thing?
Well, I don't know. No, I think they work in conjunction. All those elements of government work in conjunction with faith groups. Government has come up with many, many proposed solutions. We're talking about racism in 2021. I'm 72 years old. We've been talking about racism for that entire length of my life. I grew up in Indianapolis. I remember when the swimming pools were integrated. So we've been talking about racism for a long time. And politicians and government talk. When all is said and done, there's a lot more said than done. I am 72 years old. I'm not about talking. I want to see results. I'm a retired fire chief. In the fire service, when you go to a fire, you don't have the option of talking the fire out. You have to take control of the situation. You have to bring the resources that are necessary to accomplish a task. And when you leave, that crisis has got to be over. And that's the kind of leadership I want to bring to the mayor's office, not talking, but actually accomplishing things. And so I see the faith community and government working hand in hand, as they did for a great portion of the American story.
Well, then, let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
The city recently declared racism, since we're on that subject now, a public health crisis, receiving a lot of criticism regarding how it's allocating its budget dollars in this priority area and for its lack of investment in the Human Relations Council. Now, according to a Dayton Daily News article earlier this year, Human Relations Council protects the rights of vulnerable community members. It provides contracting assistance to minority businesses, and it's a great part of the police reform efforts. What would you do to support the HRC, the Human Relations Council, as it continues to work to close the gap of racial disparities and strengthen equity and inclusion?
Well, look, racism is something that affects the entire human race. Racism is in the heart of man. My worldview is based upon the Bible. And the Bible says that we're a fallen human race and that sin is a part of being a fallen human race. We're separated from God. So racism's in the heart of man. And racism is not going to be solved by a government program. It's going to be solved by the one who came to deal with sin on the cross, and that's the Lord Jesus. So ultimately, I want to bring the faith community together. If we can't get Black churches and white churches, Black pastors and white churches together, then I don't see how we're ever going to move the ball forward in terms of solving the bigger issue of race. As far as the things that you brought up, I'm not opposed to any of that. Whatever we can do to alleviate the symptoms of racism, let's do it. At the same time, let's recognize that the core, the cancer is in the heart of man, and that's the things that divide us. And I want to see those divisions taken out of the way. And I believe the faith community is at least the first step in seeing that happen.
Well, you can change laws and you can legislate, and which can create ways for people to respect others and to deal with implicit biases. But when you're talking about changing hearts or changing minds, how would you work that?
Well,
you can always legislate. You can always create ordinances and rules and laws to make people treat others fairly. But you're talking about that won't work. You have to change your hearts.
Has it worked?
How would you do that?
It hasn't worked. It's been an abysmal failure. We've passed laws after laws after laws, and now racism is on the front and center stage of the American story right now. It's in every news program. It's on the front page of every paper. Those things have not worked long term. The Democratic Party has been in control of Dayton city government ever since Mike Turner was defeated back in, 2020 or 2000 or something like that. Has the issue of racism been solved? Have they moved the ball down the court in terms of successful remediation of racism? The answer is no. Under their leadership, jobs have left, drugs have skyrocketed. We were named the heroin fentanyl capital of the country. Dayton, litter has increased, abandoned homes have increased, decline under that leadership. And I don't think the situation between the races has gotten any better at all. It hasn't. It's much worse than it was. So I don't think politicians are going to solve this issue. So I think Dayton is ready for a change. We've knocked on 3,500 doors, and people that were the neighbors. I mean, as mayor, I will be representing the neighbors, the people in the neighborhoods. I'm not running to get my own agenda done. I'm running to represent them. This is a representative form of government. What are they saying? We're in a state of decline under the present leadership. What they're doing isn't resolving issues, it's making issues worse. So I'm the candidate to say, let's try a different approach.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's talk about a rebirth and development with the arcade downtown. And there's new upscale housing, there's new commercial developments, and many of those projects have been subsidized by city money. So citizens, some folks are expressing some worries that the same kind of investment has not been seen in neighboring communities. And I'd like to know what you would do to ensure that Dayton's neighborhoods get the same type of investment as downtown.
I'll reprioritize our spending. I'm very, very thankful for the renaissance that's taken place downtown. I'm very, very thankful for the housing units that have been created downtown. I think bringing young people to occupy those residencies that have been built, and young families down, all that's very, very positive. So I'm not one to just throw a bunch of cold water on what's been done downtown. I think it's a very good thing that's taken place. However, as we've knocked on the 3,500 doors, people are saying the neighborhoods have been neglected, as you just mentioned. And you're asking me, how are we going to do that? But I just want to emphasize the things that concern the neighbors, the people in the neighborhoods. We have 60 neighborhoods in this city, and most of them feel like they've been forgotten. And so we have abandoned houses that pull down property values, pull down the whole element of pride in your community. Abandoned houses draw drug users. Then that draws the coroner, who removes dead bodies from these houses in body bags, and the children are standing around watching all this happen. This is absolutely death to pride in your neighborhood. And it's when we go and knock on doors, the neighbors are pointing down 2 houses down. That's a drug house, and then the litter and all of that. So can you tell your audience right now, what would you do to make that change? What would you do to make sure that Dayton's neighborhoods get the same as what is happening downtown? Reprioritize. Yes, our priority will be the neighborhoods. Downtown remains the status quo. Our goal is to we want to be the small business capital of Ohio. We should be. We're on the crossroads of America. Interstate 70 Interstate 75. We have a tremendous water system. Business, industry, they need water. We have one of the best aquifers in the world right here in Dayton, Ohio. So we have a lot of natural resources. We have all these colleges that are there, so the small business thing is ripe to harvest. That will help the neighborhoods as well. So we want money reallocated to the neighborhoods we have 10,000 abandoned homes approximately in the city of Dayton. Let's get the people together who know how to deal with this problem. I'm not the candidate that says, listen to me, I've got all the answers. I don't believe anybody has all the answers. I think when I was in the fire department for 30 years, I was in charge of terrorism preparedness for an 8-county area. We had to write plans for the federal government for biological, radiological, chemical, explosive attacks. This was an overwhelming responsibility. I didn't know how to do it. So I got all the really smart people together in each of their areas of expertise: fire, police, hospitals, EMAs, health departments, et cetera, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, the government, everything together. We came together, we turned people loose, we cast vision, we turned them loose in their areas of expertise. They wrote the plan. We received the money from the federal government. I look at government, I look at my role as mayor, it's the same way. I don't have to have all the answers. I am a uniter. I will get the very smart people together, the business people, the entrepreneurs. We'll get them together. We'll turn them loose. We'll get the developers together. What can we do for the neighborhoods? The neighbors.
But you as mayor, and I understand that, and I think that those group discussions are excellent. But you as mayor would have to have the vision, the specific focus. So it's what you're telling me now, your specific focus would be housing, would be to,
abandoned houses, litter. In 1968, Lady Bird Johnson presented to Mayor James H. McGee the Cleanest City in America Award. The reason I know that, because as we were knocking on doors, an elderly gentleman said, when I was a kid, there were signs all over Dayton that said, Dayton, Ohio, welcome to the cleanest city in America. I Googled it. I found out that she presented that award to Mayor James H. McGee. Dayton was competing against 141 cities. They won. We won the cleanest city in America. We're not that anymore, but we can do. In April 6th of 2019, the faith community came together. In 4 hours, we had 1,200 volunteers in 30 of the 60 neighborhoods. We collected 129 tons of litter, 21,000 pounds of tires. In 4 hours, we cleaned up half the city in half a day. Litter is an easy problem to solve. The faith community is there with people and resources to see it happen. So this is what the neighbors are telling us: abandoned homes, litter, drugs, streets. There are potholes everywhere. Let's reallocate some of this money and let's make our streets safe for cars to drive on. Let's get rid of the litter and let's get the people together. I mean, Pittsburgh, Columbus. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Other cities have experienced revival and regeneration in very crisis neighborhoods. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's draw upon their expertise, what they did. I don't know if you've been to Columbus, but from downtown Columbus all the way to Ohio State, High Street, it was a disaster. But if you go down there now, it's all developed, it's pristine, it's beautiful. All right, how did you do that? Where'd you find the money? How did you get rid of the abandoned homes? Let's find out and let's apply some of these things. Let's get something done rather than talk it to death.
It just might be, and thank you for that answer, and we'll move on from there. But it just would be a lot easier also if Dayton had the same revenue of a Columbus, which is a lot bigger and has a great population. But we'll move on from that. Let's talk about Governor Mike DeWine.
Let's add to that. Let's build our tax base by drawing business and entrepreneurs. That's how tax bases are built. We need to be the most friendly small business place of doing business. I've talked to small business owners. They are so frustrated with city government and all the regulations and all the added expense that they charge for doing business in this town. Let's look at overregulation and get rid of it. Let's make it business friendly. Now, some regulations are necessary, but there's so many. I saw this in the fire service too, when we do fire inspections. I mean, we could shut down every business if we were, holding to the letter of the law, but it didn't make any sense. So, common sense.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this point, we want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about Governor Dewine and his initiative to address minority health and racial disparities. The mayor and commissioners have praised his declaration that racism is a public health crisis and have declared racism as a public health emergency. So what are your thoughts on this declaration, and what will you do to address the issue of racial disparity in this area?
Well, I don't think I could do much worse than the current administration. I mean, they've been in charge for 20 years, and now we're declaring racism as a crisis in our city. So
what are your thoughts?
Well, my thought is that they failed miserably. It's time for a change. And I'm all for, as I've said, let's bring the faith community together, both sides of town. Let's lay the problems out. Let's reason together, get all the people at the table, have their expertise weigh in, and take steps to eradicate as much as possible the sin of racism. So I'm a uniter. I believe in bringing people together. On the fire service, I worked in the fire department 30 years. I said this at the NAACP debate, and people mocked it. But the truth is, when you're going into a burning building with a black firefighter, he's a firefighter. He's not a black firefighter. And I don't think he looks at me as a white firefighter. We're there. He's got my back. I got his back. If he doesn't do his job, I'm going to die. If I don't do my job, he's going to die. So we came together, and we didn't separate and divide because of color of skin.
Let's talk about health disparities. I think addressing racism as a public health crisis and a public health emergency. And my question is, what are your thoughts about that declaration in reference to racism being a public health emergency?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I haven't really thought it through to any great degree about a public health emergency. But if that's what it is, that's what it is. I'm not opposed to that declaration at all. But I'm looking at solutions, not just how do we define it or what we call it, how do we overcome it? That's my emphasis, not declarations, not talk, overcoming, action. And that's what I think separates me from my opponents. Mr. Mims has been on the commission for 8 years. What have they done about racism? Mr. Leitzel was a mayor for 4 years. What got accomplished in terms of eradicating racism? Talk, talk, talk. I'm not about talk. Let's take affirmative steps. Let's take action. I'm all about that.
Since we were on the subject, let's talk respond to national events. Let's talk about community police relations. And there was a 9-month police reform process. Members of the community were included in that. Did that, do you think, adequately address that issue of race relations and policing?
No, it didn't. And here's why, Marsha, because the Fraternal Order of Police, the police union in the city of Dayton, was not at the table. Now, Mr. Mims says, yes, they were. No, they weren't. And I talked to the president I've talked to the FOP, and they said the committee hand-selected 2 black police officers. They sat on the committee, but just like in the fire union, I could give my opinion, but I'm not representing Local 136 of the firefighters. And these 2 black officers that were selected, they weren't representing the FOP. If you're serious about police reform, get the right people to the table, the people that have authority to make decisions. So it was more talk. Now, I talked to the Fraternal Order of Police. They want the bad apples out. They don't want racist police officers. When I came on the fire department in 1989, we had an interview process. First, you took a written test, then you did the physical agility, and if you passed all that, then there was the interview process. And the interview process was where you weeded out the bad apples. To be a police, and the police did the same thing. Somewhere along the line, not too long ago, civil service eliminated the interview process. So you got a guy that's good at test taking, and he can do the physical agility. Police work and firefighting work, it's public relations. It takes tremendous people skills to do that job effectively. The guy that just got convicted in Minneapolis, he had no people skills. And so the personal interview process eliminates bad apples. The police want that. But if they're not even invited to the table, Come on, that's ridiculous. And so it's more posturing, more talk, but you got to get the people to the table. I mean, doesn't that make sense?
I appreciate your comments. And we are finished with your interview. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, that was a very brief interview, but we're all about the neighborhoods. We're all about eliminating abandoned houses and trash. We're about building small businesses. We're about making this the most small business capital of Ohio, friendly place to do business. Let's use the natural resources that God has given us, these rivers. Let's use the colleges. Let's use Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Let's leverage all that. And one more thing, Marsha, if I may, we're getting $147 million, okay? One-time stimulus. How are we going to use that? To me, and I've said this in other debates, you know, it's like buying a new car. We can drive that car off the lot and it loses 22% of its value in depreciation. Now we can take this $147 million and we can fritter it away in depreciating things. And at the end of the day, 5 years from now, we won't even know we received the $147 million. Let's invest. Let's invest it and grow this. And I think one of the things that we can use to grow it is training programs for jobs, because I know employers, they can't find trained employees. It's a major problem in our city. Let's invest in some training programs. Right now, Montgomery County Technical, Career Technical, they've eliminated all their programs except for electrical and heating and air conditioning. All the others are gone because nobody's signing up for them. We need to invest in training. Everyone thinks you have to have a college education to make a living and support your family. Not so. The trades are so valuable and people are making a lot of money in the trades if they're trained. So I'd like to see a lot of this 147 million going into training programs where people, black and white, whatever color you are, can acquire a trade and a way to make a living, a way to support a family, a way to build the tax base. I think that is an appreciating item that will, pay dividends for decades to come. That's one thought.
And I will tell you that is the thought of the folks who have been interviewed prior to you, that everyone agrees with that exactly. We allotted 20.
I was the first one that mentioned it, so I know imitation is the heart of flattery. So I'm very much appreciative of them copying my ideas.
Well, we just to answer your statement a couple of minutes ago, we have allotted 25 to 30 minutes for each candidate, and okay. You explained all of and answered all of your questions quite well. So thank you so much.
So that was a half hour.
Yeah.
Marsha, very. I would like to meet you in person. I have followed your career, and you're a blessing to the community.
Thank you. Very kind. I appreciate it. It's been nice. It's been nice chat.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.